This is a recording of an article on Wikipedia and was recorded by user Popular Outcast. The material recorded is current as of the June 2nd, 2013 revision of the article. California condor from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia at en.wikipedia.org. The California condor, or Gymnogyps californianus, is a New World vulture, the largest North American land bird. This condor became extinct in the wild in 1987. All remaining wild individuals were captured, but has been reintroduced to northern Arizona and southern Utah, including the Grand Canyon area and Zia National Park, coastal mountains of central and southern California, and northern Baja California. Although other fossil members are known, it is the only surviving member of the genus Gymnogyps. The plumage is black with patches of white on the underside of the wings, and the head is largely bald, with skin color ranging from gray on young birds to yellow and bright orange on breeding adults. Its huge 3-meter or 9.8-foot wingspan is the largest of any North American bird, and its weight of up to 12 kilograms or 26 pounds makes it nearly equal the trumpeter swan, the largest among native North American bird species. The condor is a scavenger and eats large amounts of carrion. It is one of the world's longest living birds with a lifespan of up to 60 years. Condor numbers dramatically declined in the 20th century due to poaching, lead poisoning, and habitat destruction. A conservation plan was put in place by the United States government that led to the capture of all 22 remaining wild condors in 1987. These surviving birds were bred at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park and the Los Angeles Zoo. Numbers rose through captive breeding and, beginning in 1991, condors have been reintroduced into the wild. The California condor is one of the world's rarest bird species. As of May 2012, population counts put the number of known condors at 405, including 226 living in the wild and 179 in captivity. The condor is a significant bird to many California Native American groups and plays an important role in several of their traditional myths. The following is a listing of the contents of this article. Section 1, Taxonomy. Section 2, Description. Section 3, Historic Range. Section 4, Habitat. Section 5, Ecology and Behavior. Section 6, Conservation. Section 7, Relationship with Humans. Section 8, References. And Section 9, External Links. Section 1, Taxonomy. The California condor was described by English naturalist George Shaw in 1797 as Vulture californianus. It was originally classified in the same genus as the Andean condor, but due to the Andean condor's slightly different markings, slightly longer wings, and tendency to kill small animals to eat, the California condor has now been placed in its own monotypic genus. The generic name Gymnogyps is derived from the Greek neged or bear and vulture, while the specific name Californianus comes from its location in California. The word condor itself is derived from the Ecuadorian Quichua condor. The exact taxonomic placement of the California condor and the other 6 species of New World vultures remains unclear. Though similar in appearance and ecological roles to Old World vultures, the New World vultures evolved from a different ancestor in a different part of the world. Just how different the two are is currently under debate, with some earlier authorities suggesting that the New World vultures are more closely related to storks. More recent authorities maintain their overall position in the order Falconiformes along with the Old World vultures, or place them in their own order Cathartiformes. The South American Classification Committee has removed the New World vultures from Siconiformes and instead placed them in Incerticetus, but notes that a move to Falconiformes or Cathartiformes is possible. Section 1.1 Evolutionary History. The genus Gymnogyps is an example of a relict distribution. During the Pleistocene epoch, this genus was widespread across the Americas. From fossils, the Floridan Gymnogyps caffordi from the early Pleistocene and the Peruvian Gymnogyps howardi from the late Pleistocene have been described. A condor found in late Pleistocene deposits on Cuba was initially described as Antilovultur veroni, but has since been recognized as another member of Gymnogyps, Gymnogyps veroni. It may even have been a subspecies of the California condor. Today's California condor is the sole surviving member of Gymnogyps and has no accepted subspecies. Although its range greatly contracted during the Holocene, the species always had a small and inbred population. However, there is a late Pleistocene form that is sometimes regarded as a paleo subspecies, Gymnogyps californianus amplus. Current opinions are mixed regarding the classification of the form as a chronospecies or a separate species, Gymnogyps amplus. Gymnogyps amplus occurred over much of the bird's historical range, even extending into Florida, but was larger, having about the same weight as the Andean condor. This bird also had a wider bill. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, Fossil of the extinct species Gymnogyps amplus from La Brea tar pits. Section 2. Description. The adult California condor is a uniform black with the exception of large triangular patches or bands of white on the underside of the wings. It has gray legs and feet, an ivory-colored bill, a frill of black feathers surrounding the base of the neck, and brownish-red eyes. The juvenile is mostly a mottled dark brown and blackish coloration on the head. It has mottled gray instead of white on the underside of its flight feathers. As an adaptation for hygiene, the condor's head and neck have few feathers, which exposes the skin to the sterilizing effects of dehydration and solar ultraviolet light at high altitudes. The skin of the head and neck is capable of flushing noticeably in response to emotional state, a capability that can serve as communication between individuals. The skin color varies from yellowish to a glowing reddish orange. The birds do not have true syringeal vocalizations. They can make a few hissing or grunting sounds only heard when very close. Contrary to the usual rule among true birds of prey, the female is slightly smaller than the male. Overall length can range from 109 to 140 centimeters and wingspan from 2.49 to 3 meters. Their weight can range from 7 to 14.1 kilograms, with estimations of average weight ranging from 8 to 9 kilograms. Wingspans of up to 3.4 meters have been reported, but no wingspan over 3.05 meters has been verified. Most measurements are from birds raised in captivity, so determining if there are any major differences in measurements between wild and captive condors is difficult. California condors have the largest wingspan of any North American bird. They are surpassed in both body length and weight only by the trumpeter swan and the introduced mute swan. The American white pelican and whooping crane also have longer bodies than the condor. Condors are so large that they can be mistaken for a small distant airplane, which possibly occurs more often than they are mistaken for other species of birds. The middle toe of the California condor's foot is greatly elongated, and the hind one is only slightly developed. The talons of all the toes are straight and blunt and are thus more adapted to walking than gripping. This is more similar to their supposed relatives, the storks, than to birds of prey and Old World vultures, which use their feet as weapons or organs of prehension. Two images accompany this section of the article. The first has the caption, "Upper body." The second has the caption, "Adult in flight. Tracking tags can be seen on both wings." Section 3. Historic Range. At the time of human settlement of the Americas, the California condor was widespread across North America. Condor bones from the late Pleistocene have been found at the Cutler Fossil Site in southern Florida. However, climate changes associated with the end of the last glacial period and the extinction of the Pleistocene megafauna led to a subsequent reduction in range and population. 500 years ago, the California condor roamed across the American Southwest and West Coast. Faunal remains of condors have been found documented in Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas. The Lewis and Clark expedition of the early 19th century reported on their sighting and shooting of California condors near the mouth of the Columbia River. Section 4. Habitat. The condors live in rocky shrubland, coniferous forests, and oak savannas. They are often found near cliffs or large trees, which they use as nesting sites. Individual birds have a huge range and have been known to travel up to 250 kilometers in search of carrion. There are two sanctuaries dedicated to this bird: the Sisquoc Condor Sanctuary in the San Rafael Wilderness and the Sespe Condor Sanctuary in the Los Padres National Forest. These areas were chosen because of their prime condor nesting habitat. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, "California Oak Savanna on the East Flank of Sonoma Mountain." Section 5. Ecology and Behavior. When in flight, the movements of the condor are remarkably graceful. The lack of a large sternum to anchor their correspondingly large flight muscles restricts them to being primarily soarers. The birds flap their wings when taking off from the ground, but after attaining a moderate elevation they largely glide, sometimes going for miles without a single flap of their wings. They have been known to fly up to speeds of 90 kilometers per hour and as high as 4,600 meters. They prefer to roost on high perches from which they can launch without any major wing flapping effort. Often these birds are seen soaring near rock cliffs, using thermals to aid in keeping aloft. The California condor has a long lifespan, reaching up to 60 years. If it survives to adulthood, the condor has few natural threats other than humans. Their vocal display is limited to grunts and hisses. Condors bathe frequently and can spend hours a day preening their feathers. Condos also perform urohydrosis or defecate on their legs to reduce their body temperature. There is a well-developed social structure within large groups of condors, with competition to determine a pecking order decided by body language, competitive play behavior, and a variety of hisses and grunts. This social hierarchy is displayed especially when the birds feed, with the dominant birds eating before the younger ones. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, "Preening Condors." Section 5.1. Diet. Wild condors inhabit large territories, often traveling 250 kilometers a day in search of carrion. It is thought that in the early days of its existence as a species, the California condor lived off the carcasses of the megafauna, which are now extinct in North America. They still prefer to feast on large terrestrial mammalian carcasses such as deer, goats, sheep, donkeys, horses, pigs, cougars, bears, or cattle. Alternatively, they may feed on the bodies of smaller mammals such as rabbits or coyotes, aquatic mammals such as whales, and California sea lions or salmon. Bird and reptile carcasses are rarely eaten. Since they do not have a sense of smell, they spot these corpses by looking for other scavengers, like eagles and smaller vultures, the latter of which cannot rip through the tougher hides of these large animals with the efficiency of the large condor. They can usually intimidate other scavengers away from the carcass, with the exception of bears, which will ignore them, and golden eagles, which will fight a condor over a kill or a carcass. In the wild they are intermittent eaters, often going for between a few days to 2 weeks without eating, then gorging themselves on 1 to 1.5 kilograms of meat at once. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, "Juveniles feeding." Section 5.2, Reproduction. Condors begin to look for a mate when they reach sexual maturity at the age of 6. To attract a prospective mate, the male condor performs a display. In the display, the male turns his head red and puffs out his neck feathers. He then spreads his wings and slowly approaches the female. If the female lowers her head to accept the male, the condors become mates for life. The pair makes a simple nest in caves or on cliff clefts, especially ones with nearby roosting trees and open spaces for landing. A mated female lays one bluish-white egg every other year. Eggs are laid as early as January to as late as April. The egg weighs about 280 grams and measures from 90 to 120 millimeters in length and about 67 millimeters in width. If the chick or egg is lost or removed, the parents double clutch or lay another egg to take the lost one's place. Researchers and breeders take advantage of this behavior to double the reproductive rate by taking the first egg away for puppet rearing. This induces the parents to lay a second egg, which the condors are sometimes allowed to raise. The eggs hatch after 53 to 60 days of incubation by both parents. Chicks are born with their eyes open and sometimes can take up to a week to leave the shell completely. The young are covered with a grayish down until they are almost as large as their parents. They are able to fly after 5 to 6 months, but continue to roost and forage with their parents until they are in their second year, at which point the parents typically turn their energies to a new nest. Ravens are the main predatory threat to condor eggs, while golden eagles and bears are potential predators of condor offspring. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, "An adult with a 30-day-old chick in a cave nest near Hopper Mountain National Wildlife Refuge in California, United States of America." Section 6, Conservation. Section 6.1, Current Status. In modern times, a wide variety of causes have contributed to the condor's decline. Its low clutch size, one young per nest, combined with a late age of sexual maturity, make the bird vulnerable to artificial population decline. Significant damage to the condor population is also attributed to poaching, especially for museum specimens, lead poisoning from eating animals containing lead shot, DDT poisoning, electric power lines, egg collecting, and habitat destruction. During the California gold rush, some condors were even kept as pets. The leading cause of mortality in nestling condors is the ingestion of trash that is fed to them by their parents. In addition to this, cattle ranchers who observe condors feeding on the dead young of their cattle assume that the birds killed the cattle. This fallacy led to the condor's extinction in some parts of the western United States. The belief was so deeply ingrained that the reintroduction of condors to the Grand Canyon was challenged by some cattle ranchers who mistakenly believed that the bird hunted calves and lambs. Unanticipated deaths among recent condor populations occurred due to contact with golden eagles, power lines, wind turbines, and other factors such as lead poisoning. Since 1994, captive bred California condors have been trained to avoid power lines and people. Since the implementation of this aversion conditioning program, the number of condor deaths due to power lines has greatly decreased. Lead poisoning due to fragmented lead bullets and large game waste is a particularly big problem for condors due to the extremely strong digestive juices. This lead waste is not as much of a problem for other avian scavengers such as the turkey vulture and common raven. This problem has been addressed in California by the Ridley Tree Condor Preservation Act, a bill that went into effect July 1, 2008, that requires that hunters use non-lead bullets when hunting in the condor's range. Blood lead levels in golden eagles as well as turkey vultures has declined with the implementation of the Ridley Tree Condor Preservation Act, demonstrating that the legislation has helped reduce other species' lead exposures aside from the California condor. An image accompanies this section of the article with the caption, "A juvenile in the Grand Canyon with its numbered tag prominent." Section 6.2, California Condor Recovery Plan. As the condor's population continued to decline, discussion began about starting a captive breeding program for the birds. Opponents to this plan argued that the condors had the right to freedom, that capturing all of the condors would change the species' habits forever, and that the cost was too great. However, the project received the approval of the United States government, and the capture of the remaining wild condors was completed on Easter Sunday 1987, when AC-9, the last wild condor, was captured. There were only 22 condors in existence, all in captivity. The goal of the California Condor Recovery Plan was to establish two geographically separate populations, one in California and the other in Arizona, each with 150 birds and at least 15 breeding pairs. As the recovery program works toward this goal, the number of release sites has grown. There are 3 active release sites in California, one in Arizona, and one in Baja California, Mexico. The captive breeding program led by the San Diego Wild Animal Park and Los Angeles Zoo got off to a slow start due to the condor's mating habits. However, utilizing the bird's ability to double clutch, biologists began removing the first egg from the nest and raising it with puppets, allowing the parents to lay another egg. As the number of condors grew, attention began to focus on releasing some back into the wild. In 1988, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service began a reintroduction experiment involving the release of captive Andean condors into the wild in California. Only females were released to eliminate the possibility of accidentally introducing a South American species into the United States. The experiment was a success, and all the Andean condors were recaptured and re-released in South America. California condors were released in 1991 and 1992 in California, and again in 1996 in Arizona near the Grand Canyon. Though the birth rate remains low in the wild, their numbers are increasing steadily through regular releases of captive reared adolescents. The California Condor Conservation Project may be one of the most expensive species conservation projects in United States history, costing over $35 million, including $20 million in federal and state funding since World War II. As of 2007, the annual cost for the condor conservation program was around $2 million per year. However, nesting milestones have been recently reached by the reintroduced condors. In 2003, the first nestling fledged in the wild since 1981. In March 2006, a pair of California condors released by Ventana Wildlife Society attempted to nest in a hollow tree near Big Sur, California. This was the first time in more than 100 years in which a pair of California condors had been seen nesting in Northern California. As of November 2011, there are 394 individuals living, including 205 in the wild, and the rest in the San Diego Wild Animal Park, the Los Angeles Zoo, the Oregon Zoo, and the World Center for Birds of Prey in Boise, Idaho. As of October 2010, the wild condor population in its name state of California reached 100 individuals and 73 wild condors in Arizona. As of May 2012, the number of living individuals has reached 405, with 179 living in captivity. As the recovery program achieved milestones, a fifth active release site in Sierra de San Pedro Martir National Park, Baja California, Mexico, was added to the 3 release sites in California and the Vermilion Cliffs release sites in Arizona. In early 2007, a California condor laid an egg in Mexico for the first time since at least the 1930s. The population of the condors has risen due to these wild and also captive nestings. In the spring of 2009, a second wild chick was born in the Sierra de San Pedro Martir National Park and was named Inia by local environmentalists. 2 images accompany this section of the article. The first has the caption, "Condor chick being fed by condor feeding puppet." The second says, "A USFWS sign at Bitter Creek National Wildlife Refuge, California, USA." Section 7. Relationship with humans. Throughout its historic range, the California condor has been a popular subject of mythology and an important symbol to Native Americans. Unusually, this bird takes on different roles in the storytelling of the different tribes. The Wiyot tribe of California says that the condor recreated mankind after Above Old Man wiped humanity out with a flood. However, other tribes, such as California's Mono, viewed the condor as a destroyer, not a creator. They say that condor seized humans, cut off their heads, and drained their blood so that it would flood ground squirrel's home. Condor then seized ground squirrel after he fled, but ground squirrel managed to cut off condor's head when condor paused to take a drink of the blood. According to the Yukut tribe, the condor sometimes ate the moon, causing the lunar cycle, and his wing caused eclipses. The Chumash tribe of Southern California believe that the condor was once the white bird, but it turned black when it flew too close to a fire. Condor bones have been found in Native American graves, as have condor feather headdresses. Cave paintings of condors have also been discovered. Some tribes ritually killed condors to make ceremonial clothing of their feathers. Shamans then dance while wearing these to reach the upper and lower spiritual worlds. Whenever a shaman died, his clothes were said to be cursed, so new clothing had to be made for his successor. Some scientists, such as Noel Snyder, believe that this process of making ceremonial clothing contributed to the condor's decline. There are references available in the written form of this article. Please be sure to verify information found on Wikipedia using the references provided or cross-referencing the information yourself. This sound file and all text in the article are licensed under the GNU Free Documentation License, available at www.gnu.org/copyleft/fdl.html.